Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are watching this. Welcome to Spurs in the Stands. I'm Sarah, and we have a jam-packed show today. Am I live? Is this working? Is anyone in the house? I need to just double check. Bear with me, because I've been doing some tests today. Give me a shout if you guys can see me in the comments. I've been doing some tests today to try and get the upload speed a little bit better than it has been in the past. So I'm hoping that this quality is better than it has been. How are we looking? It's looking okay. Is it blurry today? I've been doing updates. I've been emailing. I don't know what that stands for. Sharp as a razor. Yes, come on. Okay, let's hope that this is going to hold up. Let's hope that this is going to hold up for today. Right. We have got a jam-packed show today. I'm just checking. Yeah, let me know if it gets blurry at any point. I'm praying that this is gonna be okay. But yes, we have a jam-packed show today because let me just check some settings. Yeah, I think we're okay. Okay, so we have got 6 segments to today. So we're going to be going an hour and a half, maybe a couple of hours. We'll see how long it takes us. But today I want to just wrap up the Paratici conversation that's been going on. I wanted to talk about some of the comments that have been coming in, the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust, the survey that came out, what else have we got on the show today? We've got Champions League squads being confirmed, the changes there, and then the lineup and the prediction for this weekend. So just to kick us off, I wonder if I can see how's the temperature of the room, because I did a poll last night, if anyone saw, on the community tab, which I asked how's everyone feeling ahead of the game this weekend. So I was just doing a temperature check to see how everyone was feeling. The majority of people are hopeful, maybe a little bit wary of this weekend. So we'll dive into all of that a little bit later in the show. Hi, everyone joining. Welcome. So to kick us off, I was going to just round up this Paratici noise because, look, the window has been and gone. None of us really care too much about what goes on behind the board. What really matters is the 90 minutes that happen on the pitch. And the way that we do that is through winning games. So look, we can have a lot of talk and a lot of noise about Paratici and whether he was on board and wasn't on board. But look, he's left. He's gone. We move on with the new era that is going to be ENIC 2.0, or however the stakes transpire. But just to round us up, Paratici basically said yesterday, was just a paraphrase. He said, in my case, Fiorentina have a serious set of owners, a very serious set of owners who are of great value. I'd like to thank Tottenham, my former club, for the opportunity they granted me to join Fiorentina, return to Italy, and the opportunity to spend 5 wonderful years in the Premier League. It was an incredible experience. They made me feel at home and stood by me in tough times, so I feel obliged to thank them. So thank you very much, Paratici, for all your fabulous signings, particularly Ryan Gill. He will be forever remembered. So we do appreciate all the hard work that went on in the background. But look, if you wanted to go, if now was the time, then if that makes space or opportunity for someone else to come in and take the reins of this transfer dire situation that we're in, I'm fully on board with that. So I am okay with that. Hi, everyone jumping in. Hi, good afternoon. Now he is working with serious owners. Oh, we've got the chat back up working. Awesome. Yes, Job. He is working with serious owners. So look, it's the end of an era. We know that lots of change happened in the back room. So I don't know. What do you guys make of this? Brian Gill. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't Brian Gill like 30 mil as well. I mean, look, as much as Paritici's done a lot of good things and brought in a lot of players at the club, we've also seen a lot of dross that's come through the doors. I mean, let's be honest. I know some of those have been land signings, but not every one of those deals has been successful. I mean, was Valise under Paratici as well? I mean, Valise has now been sold as well. He got the Here We Go last night. So congratulations to Valise. And thankfully he's off our books. So that's one less lone player to worry about. But yeah, don't worry, Wayne. We will get into the lineups and bits in a little bit. But yeah, just to put that one to bed, Paratici, thank you very much for all your service. We will move on. Speaking of which, I'll go through the Champions League squad because I know this is not a Champions League game, but I just wanted to mention that was confirmed this morning at 9:30. There were no surprises. We expected 3 changes to be put into the squad. And we were speculating that it would be Gallagher, Dragusin and Tell, which has indeed been the case. And the players to have made way for that are Johnson, Davis and Bentancur. Now, Bentancur was the surprise here because I know Bentancur has got injury, but sadly, that means that he's not going to make the squad at all, a bit like Kulu and Maddison. So the reason why I'm bringing this now is because obviously we weren't sure about how serious Bentancur's injury is, and it looks like it's going to be a long-term one, which is so unfortunate for Bentancur because Bentancur spent a lot of time out injured over the last 5 years. So to have another long-term injury, look, it's just another reflection of the poor squad planning, potentially the poor squad selection by Frank, although he's been playing with what he's got. So it is a bit of a shame. However, it's good news for Tell. And the like-for-like swap for Dragusin seems to have been for Danso. Well, Danso's still in the squad, but obviously if Danso is going to be out till the end of the season, it's good that we have Dragusin as the backup. So the only person who didn't make the squad was Bissouma. So our midfield is one of the most stacked positions, so it's no surprise that Bissouma wouldn't be named in the squad. The comments that I wanted to read out looks like Bentancur, Kulusevski and Maddison out for the season. Yeah, so there was someone put an interesting comment actually, which I was about to read to you guys in the video. I think it was a couple of videos ago, but it was Job actually. Oh, Job, you're in the chat. So Job said on the Kulusevski update that the patella healed in December, but he's still having anti-inflammatory injections, which we caught wind of a few weeks ago when he flew out to, I think it was Italy to get further treatment. So unfortunately, it does sound like Kulusevski's is going to be like a much, much long-term injury, which is a shame for him because we've desperately missed him in that space in the midfield. So again, potentially that's lack of planning because we also know Maddison's out, but hopefully Xavi can step up to the plate this weekend. Richard saying, I think Bentancur should be moved on in the summer. I know he signed a new contract, but whatever they're worth now. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I think as well, I think it's something that I've said as well, that I think Sarr has a higher ceiling than Bentancur. Bentancur is in his prime now. And if this is his ceiling, then it's probably not good enough to take us forward. And considering he's had so many injuries, look, Bentancur has been a great servant to the club. He is a fantastic player. He really is. On a good day, he's fantastic. But as with a lot of our players, they are inconsistent. So there's a difference between having a really high ceiling and playing in that ceiling consistently versus playing mediocre or bang average consistently, or going through these peaks and troughs, which is kind of what Bentancur does. And we've seen that with Sarr and Bissouma as well. All of these players, they don't have the consistency to play at a high level for back-to-back games every 3 days. And that is part of our problem. That is part of the challenge that we have, because part of it is training. Part of it is, getting physically ready and mentally ready and being able to play these games back-to-back. And part of it is skill. And whichever way you spin it, maybe some of our players in our squad don't have the potential to be the best that they can be for where we want to go. And players like Bentancur might be someone who would give way to that. Whether Bentancur is a player that they're looking to sell this summer, I'm not sure. But that area in midfield is stacked. And I would take Gallagher over Bentancur. I don't know. What do you guys think? Would you take Gallagher over Bentancur? I guess we've bought in Gallagher. So the question is, do you sign Paulinho and sell Bentancur, or do you keep Bentancur and give Paulinho back? But if he's a longer term injury, then maybe now is the time to get rid of Bentancur. And I'm sure Bentancur will play at the World Cup as well. I'd imagine he'd play at the World Cup. That's if he's fit. If it depends how long his injury is. Hi, Matt. It'd be quicker to name the players worth keeping this summer. The loss of Son and an injury of Decky has exposed how average most are. And I think this is part of our problem, isn't it? We're keeping a lot of dross on the books. So we've always had this problem at Spurs. We keep players longer than they should be at the club, and then we struggle to sell them at the end of it. I mean, if you were to sell Bentancur right now, he would probably get a good deal. If you were to keep him for another year or two, you wouldn't get the same money for him. So yeah, most of you are saying sell Bentancur. Yeah, I think Gallagher and Sarr are probably better shouts for the squad long term. Also, I just wanted to shout out, because we have some new members. So just to give a shout out, and George Rizzo, and I'm sorry, George, if I've said your name wrong, but I'm sure maybe you're probably still in bed because I don't know what time it is in San Antonio, but welcome to the COYS Collective, because a lot of you here, I know a lot of people here are maybe long-term Spurs fans, but I take on board that there are a lot of people out there who are just coming into the Spurs community. And so George said, I'm a new fan from San Antonio, Texas. The teams I support here have been part of my life for so many years. I can't remember what it was like not supporting them. My fandom for Tottenham is in its infant stages, and I'm searching for ways to fall in love with this team. Enjoying this video of you and your father is one of those ways. The dream of being able to attend a live match is beginning to form. Thank you so much for this snapshot of what supporting Spurs can be for me, COYS. So, George, welcome to the tribe. If you're searching for ways to fall in love with the team, I'd say lock in, because part of being a Spurs fan is embracing the pain and the pleasure. And it's the pride that we take in that is what makes us true supporters. So good luck on being a Spurs fan. I hope for you too that you get to come along to a Spurs game very, very soon. I don't know why you've chosen Spurs to support as opposed to one of the other clubs, but maybe you're not a glory hunter, and maybe you enjoy the roller coaster as most of us are on right now. So yes, welcome very much to the tribe. And yeah, it's been like this for a few seasons. So hopefully we can come out the other side very, very soon. More pain at the moment. Yeah, exactly. There was one question sort of about, from my perspective of transformation, but I'm going to actually save that for a little bit, because the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust survey came out yesterday. Has anyone seen these published results? Has anyone heard about them? Has anyone seen what's been said? So I actually did see the poll that was done on X, and I actually replied to the poll. So it was interesting, because when I actually took the questionnaire myself, I was answering these questions and I was thinking, man, I've got to vote each of these cornerstones out of 10. Like, how do I actually vote these out of 10? And I think the highest score that I gave was about 6 out of 10. And I think most of them were about 2 or 3 out of 10. So I was trying to be fair in my responses. Clearly doesn't want to mix his fandom, just sticking to being a Spurs fan. San Antonio Spurs basketball team. Yeah, maybe. I picked Spurs as a Red Sox fan. I've been to the Red Sox stadium when I did a little tour of America. Really cool stadium. I know, heartbreak, but it's worth it when we finally get there. Well, let's hope that we get there, Scrappy 7. Let's hope that we get there. So the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust, throughout the month of January, they did a survey, and it was pinned to their X account. And the headline, which has been published by The Athletic, Jack Pitbrook. And for the person in the comments yesterday who was going mad at me for paraphrasing Alistair Gould's presser yesterday. The reason why I did that is because the presser wasn't out on video yet. So that's why I did that. But I can assure you I made my own commentary on it as well. So I don't want to put words in Alistair Gould's mouth. These opinions are my own. But yes, so the survey was looking at fan satisfaction with the ownership specifically. And it transpired that the perception of the fans is that the Spurs ownership has fallen to its lowest level since the survey began. And that led for a call for sustained improvement across the club's operations. So there were five principles in this survey. And they do this every 6 months. So if anyone wants to, have your say within that, in the next 6 months, they'll be on the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust Twitter page. 4,500 fans responded to this survey. I don't know, because when I did the survey, you don't have to be a paying member. You can just be an associate member. So there was a thought in the back of my mind thinking, how are they regulating who is answering these questions? Having said that, all five of the principles were marked out of 10, and the ownership got their lowest score ever. I don't think any of us are surprised about that. So on commit to winning, they scored a 1.65 out of 10, which was down from 3.5 last June. There was a category on attract and retaining talent. So the survey was 1.9 out of 10, down from 3.3. There was a category on future-proofing the success, and the ownership got a result of 2.96 out of 10. And that was down from 5.9 last June. So, I mean, you're talking like 3 out of 10 for people believing that the ownership model has a future proof of success. I mean, that's terrible. That is really, really bad. That is really bad. If that was any other business, you'd say that the business was failing. And they had on lead with integrity. So the score was 2.2 out of 10. That was down from 4. And on fans first, it was just 1.9 out of 10. So that was down from 3.2. So their commitment to winning is the lowest rated out of all of those. And their future-proofing of success was the best. So is anyone in the comments surprised at the terrible outcome that fans are at complete discontent of the ownership? I don't know if anyone's actually surprised. Is anyone surprised at that? I mean, what we can take from this is that fans are disgruntled about the winning on the pitch, about the vision that the club is taking, about the execution, the ability to attract and retain talent. All of it has not been up to par. I mean, I think the one that I put a 6 was future-proofing success. And I think I gave attract and retaining talent a 3 or a 4, because I was thinking, well, we have managed to keep Romero and he was a big character. So I think 1.97 may be a bit harsh on that one. The owners only care about staying in the Premier League, even if finishing 17th. Yeah, I mean, that's also true. I don't see we beat Man United. I'm surprised they got as much as 1. Yeah, I mean, look, this survey doesn't reveal much, but it is an opportunity for fans to have their say. I'm not sure why Change for Spurs doesn't collaborate with the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust, because there must have been, I don't know too much about the setup, but there must have been conversations. Because, look, I tried to contact the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. I've emailed them last week and they haven't emailed me back. So they've got a lot going on in their world. Obviously, they're the ones who speak directly to the club. So when you see like the fan forums and things like that come out at the beginning of the season, typically the club cherry pick individuals who are members of the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Club to put their questions forward, which is why often a lot of the questions are biased, because they're cherry picking what types of questions they want to be asked. In the same way that I had a comment yesterday asking me about Lange, like, does he have to come out and talk about why it wasn't a very good transfer window? Well, unfortunately, he's got the short straw, because part of your job is to answer those questions. And Ben Haynes, he has a list of questions that he needs to ask. So in reality, that was kind of quite fair for him. That was a very easy setup because the questions were already predetermined and they're designed in a way that's going to bring out the best in what you're trying to say. So it is very skewed. So the club has acknowledged that it can't exist without supporters. The actions it has taken in the past have not always been commensurate with this statement. We ask that the club follows through this commitment in its interactions with supporters at all levels. Every communication should be considered through the lens of supporters to ensure they feel that they play a vital role in the success of our football club. So look, as far as I'm concerned, the funny thing, the comment said, someone said, Cootie nods in agreement. Cootie nods in agreement. He probably does nod in agreement. He probably even voted. But look, it's true. The club need to take responsibility. They are not very good at engaging fans. And yesterday I spoke about the women's team. I was actually surprised how many of you were interested in that. But the thing that's so strange is that I completely get that when the team's playing well, you will sell out. You will sell out the stadium. There will be no booing because your club is being successful. And so in order to get full stadiums, in order to get the fans behind the team, they need to win. Like, it's as simple as that. Fans are very fickle and we're there for the game of football. Yes, we can talk about the board and everything like that. But for most of us, we just want to watch a good game of football. So it's very disheartening that they're completely tone deaf to the room. And what's crazy is I was reading that this weekend, the women's team are playing Chelsea in the derby, and they're trialing this new initiative where fans can drink in the stands, which I thought was very interesting, considering alcohol is banned in the stands. For those of you that aren't watching from the UK, alcohol is banned in the stands in the UK. So it's very interesting how they've decided for the women's game to trial this new initiative where fans are allowed to drink in the stands. And not only that, they're giving out like foam fingers and they're doing face painting and lots of things to engage fans. So look, on a men's game day, that's not going to really change fans' attitude, but it is interesting how the culture of the club is very split. And I don't know if that's like a footballing thing, but there is like definitely a cultural shift that has happened behind the scenes at the club, and it's very toxic. So Spurs women is generally much more exciting than the men's this season. Yeah, I mean, that's also true. So San Antonio fans, if you're coming and you want to watch a game, maybe you want to go and watch the women's game for a tenner. I don't know. But yeah, different attitudes, for more family friendly. See, that's true. But the other thing that was interesting about that was that the women's games have a youth discount, which is 18 to 21, but they don't have a senior discount. Whereas the men's game has the senior discount, but not the youth discount. So it does seem that they're trying to capture different audiences and bring in new supporters. Whether it's successful or not, I think that depends on the success of the club. And in order to do that, in order to get fans behind the team, you need to win games. And how do you do that? You support the team by bringing in the players that are going to help you to build the squad good enough. We've seen that with Aston Villa. I think Man United, and of course we're going to talk about Man United. Man United are on a bit of a caretaker bounce right now. But let us not forget, Man U don't have midweek football. They don't have a second game. We beat them in that Europa League final. So they finished, 15th last year? So you can't compare apples and pears. It is a different situation with Man United. But I think you can compare it to maybe a team like Aston Villa, who are kind of like not a top six club, and a bit like Newcastle as well, maybe even Crystal Palace. So the teams that are sort of in and out of European football, so one season they're in it, one season they're out of it, those are the teams that we're really on par with. But I think part of the cultural problem is we probably aren't realistic behind the scenes. We think we're probably bigger and better than we actually are. So we count ourselves as a top 6 club, but then we don't have the squad to back that up. And we need to be realistic that where we sit is probably nearer 10th to 12th, maybe even 8th to 12th is probably a bit more realistic. So loads of tickets for Tuesday night versus Newcastle, right at the top, pricing out of control. And do you know what, Ronnie? So I'm going to the game on Tuesday. Also, it's a 7:30 kickoff on Tuesday. It's a 7:30 kickoff, which is early for an evening game. So we've seen in the past that when you have the earlier kickoffs, either people come a little bit later or there are sometimes delays. 7:30 is a horrible time for a kickoff in London. That's like a really terrible time because you're the back end of rush hour and it's not enough time to go home. So people go straight from work. And this is why I was saying you need a student discount, because it's the students who are going to go on those evening games. I've enjoyed watching Spurs women this season. I wish I could same for the men's. Do you know what, guys? I'm actually surprised how many people watch the women's. I can't say that I do, but I watch the fan shows and things like that. So I've heard, captains and everything speak. But anyway, let's move on. Just before we go into the lineup, I want to touch on this question from Systemic Frog. By the way, guys, if you do have any other questions, shout them in the comments because I do have them up. I definitely think that it's part of the schism in the fan base. A lot of younger fans used to Poch, Kane, Champions League, etc., have a lot higher expectations and don't remember how awful the 90s were. Yes. I mean, arguably, Martin Yeo, Harry Redknapp. Martin Yeo and Harry Redknapp were the two sort of managers that I first were introduced to when I became a Spurs fan. And in that era, that was probably the 90s, 2000s. And the Redknapp era was probably one of the best eras. And even Martin Yeo, that was probably still one of our better eras. So yes, we were not fantastic in those eras, but it's been a bit of a roller coaster. This is the thing. We've never had sustained success. And that brings this question in because Systemic Frog said, I have a conceptual question for you with your background in transformation. So anyone new here, I'm a transformational coach. Assuming the usual process where a transformational journey is outlined by a 3 to 5 year business plan or strategy, it is very rarely the case that a 3 or 5 year plan resembles the strategy as it was laid out at the start of the delivery, so the beginning of year 1. This can be applied to any business. If year 3 can be said to be on track, it usually means you have heroes or miracle workers employed at the business, which THFC demonstrably have not had for a while. Year 1 and 2 tend to change a little to compensate for real life events. That said, why is it that THFC seems to be halfway through year 1 for the past 8 years? It feels as if ENIC do this on purpose. Of course, here I include Levy. He's still a factor, of course, until he can sell on his holdings. So the thing about transformation is you have transformation at different levels. So you have transformation from the top, so from ENIC. You have transformation from the board or the C-suite or the executives, directors. You have transformation within each department. So let's say Tottenham Hotspur have 15,000 employed staff. You're going to have that across each of those departments. You're going to have it within the coaching squad, and you're going to have it at player level as well. So some of those are going to be individual metrics, and some of those are going to be business metrics. Some of them are going to be like performance metrics. So transformation happens at different levels, but I guess this question is looking at like the big picture of ENIC and why this keeps happening. Why do we keep going through this phase where we set out this 5-year plan and we always seem to reset to year 1? And that's because they haven't executed their plan. That is because they have probably changed the goalpost. So there's something called the GROW model, which typically is like a high level structure that you could stick to understand how a club or how a company or an individual is going to transform. So you set out with your goal, and that is the most fundamental important thing, because the goals that we've been hearing, so success across all fronts, that is not specific enough. So we don't know, as fans, we don't know behind the scenes. If I was going into, let's say, Tottenham Hotspur, I would be like, okay, but the goal, high level, is to achieve success at all fronts. But what specifically is that? You know, what is the measurable target? Is it achievable? Is it realistic? Is it tangible? Is it something that can be achieved? So there's different metrics that you can use. Now, the challenge is that you identify opportunities, and the fourth step is identifying the will, the way forward. And what we lack is the execution, the conviction to execute the goal. And the reason why that happens is because the goal is not specific enough. That's, in my opinion, if I was to diagnose, you know, a doctor's going to go in and diagnose where your hamstring injury is. I'm going to go in and diagnose what's wrong in terms of setting the goals. So sometimes it's to do with the execution. Sometimes it's to do with the vision. In this case, it's a combination because you've had so many different people setting out the parameters. It's not specific enough. Does that make sense? So if you're going to say we're going to compete at all fronts, what specifically is that? Like, what specifically does that mean? You go to a Carabao Cup quarterfinal? Does it mean you go to an FA Cup semi-final? Does it mean that you go to Champions League final 8? Does it mean that you get through the league stages? What does it mean that you're going to finish in European football? And further to that, are you specifically saying Conference League football, Europa League football, Champions League football? And the reason why we haven't heard specifically, obviously under Levy, we heard top 4. That was something that was very common for under the Levy era to be like, we want top 4 football, top 4. That was kind of like a metric that we were all familiar with. The ambition of the fans was more than the ambition of the club. So then you start to reveal the misalignment, right? You start to reveal how the disgruntlement of the fans doesn't mirror the same vision that the club have. And so when you have a misalignment like that, either internally or externally, you never achieve the goal. You never achieve the goal. To create success, to create abundance, to create alignment, you have to all be on the same track. So you all have to understand, you know, this is the direction we're going. We want to finish. Let's say if we're realistic about this season, let's say we want to finish 7th and we want Conference League, for example. Fans might say that's not good enough, but you have realistic objectives. And this is why the parameters keep being moved, because they're also not realistic with where we are. They're not realistic. So if you say we're going to go and win Champions League, and the expectation is there, but you're not prepared for it, you don't have the resources and the depth of squad to do that, then you're going to fail. So how you mitigate that is, yes, you have to change, you have to not change, but you have to be flexible and adaptable in your approach. So that is when the business plan and the business strategy changes year on year to accommodate for things that haven't worked out in the past. So you're learning from things that you're not doing right. And the problem is we're not learning. We're not taking those lessons and improving them. We are doing the same thing over and over again. And that's why we're in this cycle. That's why we've seen for the last beyond Ange, this is why since Conte's era, we've been seeing this pattern for 4 years, because no one at the helm has said, right, this is the goal, this is the direction. We have confidence in this plan. It's realistic. We've identified the opportunities. And so now we all move forward aligned. They're saying they're aligned, but they're not aligned. That is personally how I read the situation. What do you guys think? Has the chat gone quiet? Because I went into flow for a second. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, ultimately, when you go through transformation, and bearing in mind, players go through their own transformation as well. So the difference between a sports psychologist and a transformational coach are 2 different things. They are 2 completely different things. A sports psychologist is going to work with the player one-on-one, potentially for their entire career. A transformation is for a set period of time. It's literally any person that goes in that does transformation that, you know, thinks it's going to be like a lifelong thing. It's not. Transformation is literally when you evolve. You know, when you get that feeling in your own life where you're like, you're just not happy anymore. And you're like, I've had enough. Like, I've had enough. I hate my job. Something's got to change. I've got to make a change. And either you make the change or something happens in your life. And it's like a sign. You're like, oh my God, like bad stuff keeps happening. Like, I need to change direction. That's kind of like what transformation is like. It's for a season. It's for that season of growth. And a transformational coach helps you achieve that faster than you would on your own, because sometimes you get so stuck in your own world that you can't see the bigger picture. So a transformational coach looks at the bigger picture of things. So for example, a player, so let's say someone like, I'm thinking of like a player, let's say someone like Sousa, who's just come in. Sousa's a young kid. There's a lot of noise and disruption around him. There's a lot of fan noise. There's a lot of social media noise around the club. So how do you get a young player to step up and grow with the team and faster than maybe they would do just coming in on their own with just the leaders around them? So a transformational coach would go in with this person and they would say, right, what are your personal goals? How do you see your career developing? How are you going to do that at Tottenham? How are you going to navigate the noise and the social media and the nervousness on game day? And so you have different levels of transformation. But from a top level, as far as I can see, if I was like a doctor and I was diagnosing this, it's because they don't have a specific enough plan. It's because they're not realistic with where we actually are. They probably think that we're in a better position than we actually are. I think they're coming to realize that now, but they haven't backed that up because they haven't bought any players. So that just reveals more. They haven't been seeking the opportunities and then the will and the way forward. They haven't actually executed on what they've set out to do yet. And that might take some time. What are you guys saying? Oh, we got a new member. Welcome, Bulldog. Welcome to the COYS Collective Tribe. Awesome. Glad to have you on board. You get in that boardroom and tell them. Yeah, I would. I don't know if they'd want to hear from me, though. They're probably sitting there with their own Kanban boards and Notion boards. I'd like to think that they would be. Because transformation, like something like this would probably take a couple of years, I'd say. Because the thing is, it takes time to figure out the mistakes that you're making. The challenge is being quick enough to adapt to those changes. And we're not quick enough. We're not agile. So this is where agile coaching comes in, because being agile means that you respond to problems and challenges in a really fast way. So clubs like Man City, they have a really good agile model, because I don't know that for a fact. I'm speculating on the success that they've had, because they manage to get things done very quickly and they adapt very quickly. If you're not agile as a club, it's going to take you longer. And so from what I see, we don't have a good agile model. That's what I see. So agile is like, how quick you can be at making transformation happen. And within that, the processes and systems that you adapt. So I don't think that we have that in place. I'd like to think that we do, but I don't think we do. What does Enoch gain by having a successful team? I'd argue nothing. If the club isn't for sale, they'll just stick to being a property developer. Any talk of success is to placate fans. Yes and no. Isn't it Tavistock Group that own the property, though? Well, they were the property developer. Wasn't Tavistock Group part of the development? So they Enoch definitely have other developments. It's not necessarily property. I was actually looking at their portfolio. It's not all property. But Enoch, what does Enoch gain? Enoch gains equity, increased profits. They gain increased profits. It's in their interest. It's in their interest. Only thing we know is what we think we only know 50% of it all. 100%. I agree with this. And this is what I'm saying. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we don't see. Obviously, they're not going to tell us, what an agile meeting looks like inside. The question is, are they actually having those meetings? Are they actually setting the metrics and the targets? Because one might say that because there's been so much movement at board level, maybe part of firing half of the board or having movement, I don't know if people have left or fired, so I can't speculate that, would be because they haven't hit their targets. So perhaps there is a case to say that maybe that's also why we're seeing so much at the top. Champions League, we need 5 to 10 years to achieve, maybe if we start organising ourselves next window. Yeah, I don't know if it's as far away as 5 to 10 years. I think consistency in the Champions League is 5 to 10 years away. Do I think we can get into Champions League again before the 5th year? I do. But whether we can sustain that, or we keep going in this cycle of overstretching ourselves, playing twice a week, getting an injury crisis every December, January, having our captain get suspended every December, part of that is all part of the problem. So I do see us getting into European football again within the next 5 years. Whether that is going to be consistent, that is the challenge. That is the biggest challenge we have, to do it consistently. And we're not alone in that. Villa, Palace, Newcastle, I'd say they're at the moment, they're probably the clubs that are the most in that bracket. I mean, I don't think Sunderland or Brentford are there yet. Everyone's saying Brentford's had a fantastic season, but Brentford, if they get European football next year, they won't sustain it. And that's the whole point, right? You have to have the squad depth to be able to do both. And that's why a lot of teams drop off. Look at Forest this year. Look at Forest this year. They don't have the depth of squad. They can't do it. I do agree that we lack specific goals. The board would never set a specific goal. They will set out a goal that can't be measured. Yes, well, then you set out to fail, because you can't hit a target that doesn't exist. You can't hit a target that doesn't exist. If you don't have a bullseye in the dartboard, you can't hit it. So the thing is, people don't set targets because firstly, they don't know how, but also they're scared of failing. But if you're so scared of failing, then you're never going to succeed. So part of setting goals is understanding that you are going to make mistakes, that you are going to fail, and being agile enough to make the changes to make it a success. And that is what we lack. That is massively what we lack at top level. But also from a player perspective as well, by the way, because the players have their own remits. The players have their own remits. So, Frank said in the press? No, he said it in an interview. I don't know. Did anyone watch the Sky interview with Frank? Did anyone watch the Sky interview with Frank? I mean, I'm also not Frank's biggest fan, and he does kind of drive me mad sometimes, but I did listen to it. And he was saying, they were asking him, Dominic Solanke's done so well since he's been back, and does he think that, or has he set a number of goals for Dominic Solanke to score for the rest of this season? And he said he hadn't. He said it's up to the players to set those, which I thought was quite interesting because, yeah, you can't say, you're going to score 12 goals for the remainder of the season. However, maybe the player sets the goals, and I think the coaching staff should have some visibility over that. So football's a funny game because you can't determine the outcome. You can't say, we're going to keep 10 clean sheets this season, because you just don't know. But you can definitely strive for some of that within that. So I don't know how they would set it on a player level, but I would say that you need some kind of goals or metrics. Otherwise, what are you shooting for? What are you aiming for? To win every game. We all want to win. Does everyone wants to win every game? No, everyone wants to win every game. Tavistock Group own part of ENIC, and ENIC owns Spurs. Okay. Selling mindset to the board. Wait, what was that? You look at signings of Tel Sousa Vuskovic. It should be a signing of looking to the future for a successful team, but I think the board just sees future sell on value only. Yeah. And this is part of the problem, right? If you also have ulterior motives, if you also have ulterior agendas, for example, making profit from players, then you can do that, because Chelsea have done that. But Chelsea also reinforced their squad with senior players. So there's nothing wrong with signing Sousa, Tel, Vuskovic. There's nothing wrong with signing those players. But you have to do it as well as reinforcing the first team squad. It can't be one or the other. And that is what we're doing at the moment. We're doing one or the other. And that is part of our downfall. It's all about injuries. Premier League clubs struggle in latter stages of European competitions because they have too many domestic fixtures. UEFA, National League and the World Cup all expanded. Yes, this I agree with. And it's something that a lot of managers talk about. I mean, we've heard Pep talk about it. We heard Slot talk about it. Ange spoke about it. There's so many managers that talk about it. I don't even David Moyes spoke about it, and Everton aren't even in another competition. I don't think they're not in European football. So it's definitely true to say that as well as all of those extra fixtures, there's also an increased physicality of the Premier League as well, an increased competitive edge. And all of that comes into how you plan for squad depth. So back end of the season, this is why you see teams drop off. This is why Sunderland is dropping off. You know, this is why maybe teams like Brentford are going to drop off. And this is why I'm convinced that I think we're going to have a better second half of the season, because I can see the shoots growing, shall we say. Players can't rest properly in the summer anymore. Any injuries aren't bad luck at all. It becomes inevitable. That's why Arsenal's double squad has really paid off. Yeah, for sure. They've built a solid bench. But that just shows you, that just reinforces the point that with lack of planning and lack of squad depth, you know, you can't win the league. They only care about the balance sheet. They care more about selling out for concerts than 3 points on a Saturday. I don't know if I agree with this. Of course, it's important, and they want to keep the books balanced. I don't know if they care more about selling out for concerts. The question is more, how are you using the money that you're making? And that again comes down to the planning. That again comes down to this is where the money mindset stuff comes in, right? Because if you're up leveling your club to be in the top four, you need to move from signing £50 million players to signing £80 million players. And that takes a mindset shift. And with that mindset shift, you then create a cultural shift. You see what I mean? You know, you can't have the cultural shift of being a top four when you're spending like you're a 14th place club. And that's what we're doing at the moment. We have the vision of being in the top four, but we don't have the conviction to execute the plan for whatever reason. And so that is why we're seeing us lower down in the table. And look, it is partly an ENIC problem, but it's also just like a lack of it's a lack of goal setting and identifying the opportunities and all of that kind of stuff, and having the conviction to move forward with it. So yes, I think they care about selling out concerts, but it's how are they reinvesting that money back into the club? And at the moment, we're not reinvesting it anywhere. So we're going to have to put a pin in that until summer, unfortunately. ENIC needs to understand Premier League is Super League. You either survive or drop to relegation. You can't just pray for no injuries. Yeah, I mean, this has been an ongoing cycle for Spurs for a couple of seasons now, isn't it? I'm going to read a couple more of these, and then we're going to go into the lineup and the prediction for this weekend. If any one of you is going to vote in the community tab, because I'm going to do a double check on that in a little bit. So if anyone's joining in the community tab or the posts tab, I put a question how you're feeling ahead of the game. So I'll do a check-in on that in a minute. I'm pretty sure Tavistock don't run the rest of their business the way they run ENIC. Otherwise, they would be closing many of their pubs and restaurants. Different business models. Because even if you have, so Tavistock Group have some retail in their portfolio, but even in retail, you're selling products, not players. It's very different. It's a different business model. So they are going to run their businesses differently. Like, you can't expect them to be the same. At the top level, if they're going through some kind of transformation, that's going to be the same regardless. But the pubs and restaurants model is so different. I mean, you've got punters, you've You've got people working staff, but nothing like having a stadium where you have 2,000 staff and you have freelancers on match day and you have marketing departments and scouts and board level executives and PR, and you know what I mean? Like it's such a huge operation. There's very few businesses in the world, even other sport, even sport like rugby, for example. Tennis is nothing like football. Football is out on its own. It really is. That's why it's the biggest sport in the world. It has its own parameters for success, and each club within that should have their own parameters of success as well. We sign more youngsters rather than senior pros because their wages are cheaper and you suppress the total wage bill. We've done it for years. Right. So this is what I'm saying, Pilch. This is exactly what I'm saying, because that's where the money mindset comes in, because you have to have the mindset shift before you have the cultural shift. And to do that, you have to spend the money without knowing that you're going to see the results before you do it. And so there's a certain level of confidence in doing that and conviction in the execution of your plan. And this is why I was saying in my last video that they don't have the balls to spend the money. They don't have the balls to spend the money because there's the cultural shift hasn't happened. You know what I mean? Like the winner's mentality that we had last year, it doesn't exist anymore. People are looking at Frank like he's a loser. Like literally, this is what people are saying. I don't agree with that, but that's what people are saying. Thank you for reinforcing my hope for the second half of the season. No problem. We can say what we want in these chats, and then we go into game day and we're like, oh, you're actually going to win. Arsenal also have the pull to sell quality players on their bench. We need that clout. It's definitely culture-based. It is a cultural thing. 100% it's a cultural thing. Look, City can go to any player, and like Semenyo, and they can get them. They get first refusal. Arsenal, they get first refusal. Arguably, Man United, they get first refusal. And they get first refusal because of their legacy. They get first refusal for different reasons. Their fan base is massive, Man United. It's huge. Liverpool as well. They have huge fan bases. They have the leverage. At Spurs, we don't have that culture. The culture of Spurs is not a winning mentality. The culture of Spurs is that we're kind of like a bit of a delusional club, and we want to win, and we have won historically, and we win things like the Europa League. But do we ever sustain success at that highest level consistently? I don't think we've ever really done it. Since we got into Champions League, we've been in and out of it ever since we started. So I think there's a case to say that culture shift needs to happen. Yeah, mindset drives culture, exactly. And Vinay might be the guy who's a bit of a winner. I don't think Lange is. I don't think Paratici was. I don't think Paratici checked that box. I don't think he was of that mentality. I don't. You can't be of that mentality if you're signing Ryan Gill. Come on. Sorry, Gill. I mean, Brian Gill. I mean, maybe wherever you're succeeding right now is a better culture than what it is here. I think the owners want to do a good job. I just think they're clueless and oblivious. I think that this is more concerning than them just being only interested in the money. I agree, Job. I agree with that. I don't think they're intentionally sabotaging. But the reason why you self-sabotage, or the reason why individuals self-sabotage, is because you don't have the confidence. You don't have the confidence. It's like me doing these videos. I started a month ago and going live. I'm petrified, but I'm just going through it. And so at some point, you build the confidence by just going live and just jumping in and doing it, and you learn on the job. Obviously, when you're spending £100 million, the pressure is different. And so that's why you need the right people who have the money mindset and the confidence to make these big decisions. And I don't know if we have that. Lange's not that guy. He's not that guy. He can spend 30 mil, but he's not going to confidently spend. I wouldn't trust him. Would you trust Lange with 100 mil? Would you trust him with that? That's the other question. So, why don't we trust him? You know what I mean? Like it goes both ways. Oh, thanks, Richard. I don't know if this is a bit off topic, but obviously it was in the comments, so I thought I'd touch on it. The reason why Lange find the transfer window so difficult is actually simple. Most Premier League clubs are now part of the MCO network. I'm not talking about just the top clubs. Maybe. It could be possible. I'm not really sure on that one. I think it's partly incompetence, if you ask me. So I'm not convinced. I think it's partly incompetence. That's just where I see it, but I could be completely wrong. Hey, if anyone from Tottenham Hotspur is listening and you want me to come in, give me a shout. Sunderland's owner also owned part of Marseille. The Red Bull Group bought Leeds shares last summer. Yeah, I mean, these models are very, very complex and complicated. They're very complex and complicated. Okay, I'm missing a lot of these comments, but I do want to dive into the game this weekend. So let's do it. Let's dive into the Tottenham Hotspur versus Man United game this weekend. I'm sure we could talk about that stuff, guys, for a really long time. So we can jump on live again and talk about it some more. Why don't they? I'm getting distracted. Stop getting distracted, Sarah. No, I love your comments. I love these comments. Why don't they hire proper football people, including DOF scouts, etc.? Then we can find gems for next to no money rather than having to slapdash set up with suits at the top. I can't answer that. That's to do with the hiring. But this is what I mean. It comes from the top, because you also have to put the right heads in the right positions. And maybe we don't have the right heads in these positions. And this is what I was saying yesterday. Rebecca Caplehorn's gone. Paritici's gone. So, okay, so you bring in Rafi. Who else are you bringing in? So the question then becomes, is Vinay the guy who's going to be hiring the right people for those seats? You know, the question, the jury's still out for me because we haven't seen him hire anyone yet. Paratici was from the last era. And wasn't Lange from the last era as well? Yeah, exactly. Would you give Lange 100 mil? No, exactly. And then we also said, why wouldn't we trust Lange with that? Because we don't trust how he's going to spend it. And so that then brings to mindset, and that then goes back to culture and what you set out to do and all of those things. Lange is not liked by Villa fans as he couldn't get top targets there. Yeah, Richard, that's exactly what I said yesterday. Anyway, right. I said we were going to move on. So let's move on. I read, we don't have good relationship with player agents as we don't pay them agents fees. That could be a part of it. It's also down to the agents to show their best players as well. And sometimes what you get is agents want to push certain players because at the end of the day, from an agent's perspective, they also want to get players off their books. So that kind of goes both ways. And I think Paratici have better relationships with agents. So ideally, the next sporting director that we get in needs to be someone who does have very good contacts. That's going to be super, super important.